for our AppMaker office hours. I'll give a few more seconds for some additional folks to jump in. But today we actually have a pretty fun agenda. We're going to see what some of our partners are up to and some of their work. So first up, we have Richard Van Delft from G Workplace, and he's going to go over some stuff, basically a technology that they've been building. And then we're going to hand it over to James, and he's going to be talking about some technology stuff and stuff that they've been working on. So without further ado, here's the actual agenda, just to kind of give you what we're planning to do. We have, let me just see here. Okay, great. So we have Richard from G Workplace, and then AppMaker University, and then towards the end, I'll just give a quick update on what we're going to be doing at Google Next, as well as like some of the new features and a basic product update. Okay, so far so good. So let's go ahead and introduce Richard. Feel free to introduce yourself and explain a little bit what you're going to be talking through.
Yes, thank you, Chris. My name is Richard Delft. I'm the founder of G Workplace, and we are a G Suite partner totally focused on building applications in G Suite. We used to do a lot of AppScript apps, but nowadays, yeah, we are more focused on AppMaker, obviously. What I'm going to show today is Docs for Work. It's an application that we have developed in AppMaker. And let me get some screens.
So I'll go ahead and stop my screen share if you like, if that helps.
Yeah, that's okay. So what's Docs for Work? Docs for Work is a document management system built on Google Drive, and based on business rules, it can drive your document management behavior, like authorization rules, version management, search on meta tags, an approval flow, check in, check out for version management, things like that. What I want to show is a short demo of the product, and then of course the coding behind it, how we have created it, and a website where you can find some more information.
So also, we do have a few late folks that are just joining, so just a bit of a recap. We have both G Workplace and AppMaker University joining for our call. And so yeah, Richard was just starting to explain some of the work that we're doing with a product called Docs for Work. So go for it.
Yeah, perfect. What you see now is the familiar AppMaker application screen of one of the templates that you can use. And what we have done in this application, built a search screen where you can search through your documents in Google Drive that you have tagged before with the application. For example, I'm going to look for how-to documents. By search, it returns all the document types of the how-to category. And nicely so, version numbers, business scope, things, and other meta tags that are added to this document. Of course, you can open the document directly. Then it just goes to Google Drive. And on the document, it has an integration that the meta tags are, again, printed on the first page of the document, or spreadsheet, or presentation. But the magic is there in AppMaker, where we can easily search through all fields. You can find the document again about AppMaker. And yeah, there are a few items there in the view that you can feedback some information to the document owner. You can put it on your favorite list, which you can find later on in the My Docs for Work page. If you are a person who are allowed to create documents, then you can also add documents to the document library by adding some metadata, selecting the document, and saving it along the way. If you're a document creator, then of course you have access to My Documents, where you can find your documents. We use there also some drop downs to find the list of documents if you have a lot of them. Yeah, then what we like about AppMaker is that you can very easily create some dashboards on your data. And you can use calendar views. You can use charts on your data. You can even use a Word tag on it. Yeah, over here to see what data is there in the database. All kinds of nice charts you can use. And and some personalization as well, like my favorites, the documents that you have tagged with the star in the favorite as in favorite, you can find it back. So that's a little bit about what we do with AppMaker.
Cool. So just to jump in really quickly, if you joined us a little bit late, Richard, one of our partners at G Workplace, they've been actually building this application. And so he was walking through and essentially providing a demo. One question I had for you is like, roughly how long would you say it took you to build out this, or at least like a V1 version of this application?
Only actually in a few days to build the screens in AppMaker, because it's quite easy. If you already know about the data model that you want, you just create the screens quite out of the box.
And then forgive me if you have some of the stuff, I think you had a few slides where you're talking about the learnings, but I'm kind of curious also, like how do you see this as being customizable? So for folks who actually want to try this out and use it, is it set up such that they can kind of plug it into their own system fairly easily?
Yeah, the idea is that a lot of business-driven document management systems always need some customization. So there are quite a number of large document management systems like Documentum or FileNet that is really a platform to extend your document management system to adapt it to your business. But we think with AppMaker platform, you can also easily adapt your document management needs towards your own business.
Cool. Any other things from a technical standpoint for your implementation? Like, for example, I saw you have a good collection of different types of widgets and charts and things like that. Is there anything that you had to kind of go out of the box to create on your own, or were you using essentially kind of what you get with AppMaker today?
Yeah, essentially what you get with AppMaker. The only thing that we a little bit tweaked to ourselves is the file drive picker. If you use the file drive picker out of the box from AppMaker, you have to run the application with the authorization of the user. And we, of course, would like that the application owns the documents so that we can apply the rules to the document set. So we use our own file drive picker to upload any files from your system.
Oh, okay. Interesting. And so you're just using like the out-of-the-box file picker, the API directly, but you deployed it as the publisher or the developer as opposed to the end user. Okay. All right. Well, that's good to know. Cool. Is there anything on the demo you want to show, or you can also show the application itself as well?
Yeah, would like to show a bit behind the scene what has been done on the development part. Mm-hmm. Just to show some data stores what we have done. Data store is the table with all the data for the documents. There are some different sources related to it. The same data that is displayed in the view for all documents. In the My Documents view, just a copy of that, and we just added a simple script to query the results to only show the documents of the active user. And so building those kind of views are quite easily by switching to a different data source. Also, relations we found very useful. Of course, the documents are related to an audit trail where you can easily map the one data source to the other data source. It's all visual, and we found it very easy to model what we had in mind for this. And it's also easy to maintain if you think that we need to change something. Well, you just go in there and easily change it and stay all consistent.
And it looks like you're using drive table as well as just a combination of calculated models and drive tables models. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay, cool. And so no other like Cloud SQL or anything embedded into it?
No Cloud SQL on this.
Okay, cool. Anything
Yeah.
else, or
And
otherwise
developing this.
we can? How about scripting? How many kind of what were the things that you ended up writing scripts for?
Yeah, the scripts we already did a lot of app scripting before AppMaker. So we just reuse some libraries that we already had used before. We have a mail manager, we have utilities, we have a language switcher. So we all push that into to this version of AppMaker.
Are you
And
using advanced services within the app itself?
Sorry, what do you?
Are you using advanced services within the app itself?
Yeah.
Right. So
Indeed,
like in the setting, you popped it open and then you add like whatever API that you need.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. In case you're not familiar, like you can even show them that feature if you click on the settings icon on the top right.
Yeah.
And then you can see the, so it looks like you also have some startup stuff going as well. Looks like, cool. And then you also got jQuery plugged in. Oh, how are you using jQuery in this?
That's partly of the file drive picker for that screen. And we used to use it for mobile support, but I'm not sure if that is really needed still.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that's a good question. I didn't notice if it was, but do you have like any pages in your screen that are mobile friendly, or did you implement any kind of flow layout?
Yeah, correct. We try to do anything on Nexus 7 to make sure that it is possible on that. And yeah, that worked out, but we had to do some tweaking for that.
Okay. Yeah, one of the things that we can also talk about later in the hour is just some of the tips and tricks on how to start to get familiar with the flow layout features within AppMaker, so you can have a little more flexibility. Cool. Anything else you want to touch on, or otherwise we can probably. I know you have some slides there where you like talking about learning. We could walk through those if you like.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Just want to say, if you want to know more about Doc's work, there's a separate website for that, where we tell a bit more about that. And I guess the most items are already discussed. What we liked about AppMaker. Yeah, that's really great for creating those screens.
You have all the information for if anyone does want to check it out, they can go to the website that you set up and then be able to download. I guess you have it in a zip format, or how does that work again? Or like, what's your publishing model? Now, obviously, this is something that's in the future we're going to be continue to work towards, like a marketplace where people or partners in general can start to post their stuff. But in the interim, what you're doing seems reasonable. But feel free to explain it. Yeah.
Yeah, we just hand over a zip file where all the coding is, so that you can easily import it yourself into AppMaker and just publish the app in your own domain. So cool. The coding is really working in your domain, and you don't share anything outside of it.
Sounds good.
Anything
else on the final thing? Yep.
If what we also want to share with the community is that we have created a tutorial application that's called Asset Management, and you can download that from the website gworkplace.com.
And so this is definitely not the app that you just showed, but I guess it's a simple kind of a tutorial app that you guys have built, and it's also, well, I guess in this case it's right at your domain's website or your company website.
There are no AppScript coding in it, but all making use of Google AppMaker. And it's just a nice showcase that you can very easily create forms and views where you can directly create, update, or delete data.
Cool.
And
Good. Awesome.
No, if there are no questions, then I would say.
Yeah, I haven't checked the stream if there's any incoming questions, but we definitely have QA at the end of the session today. But thanks a lot, Richard. I guess we can switch gears a little bit, and then we have also AppMaker University. So let me go ahead. I'm going to share my screen again, and I can drive the where we're at. So hopefully you can see my screen. And I'll go ahead and introduce James. So James, you're up. Feel free to explain a little bit about yourself and also what you'll be talking about today.
Great. Well, thanks for having us on here, Chris. I'm James Ferreira from AppMaker University, where we believe that you can build apps. And so we partner with Google to provide training on AppMaker. And we've got just at appmakeruniversity.com, we've got dozens and dozens of videos that go through all the different kinds of steps. And I just kind of wanted to highlight a couple that we have that have just come up this week. So we threw those up there on the screen. So we're doing some totaling. We've been listening to the forums and hearing you guys that you need to know a little bit more about how to do totals and things like that, especially inline or totals in drive tables and those kinds of things. So we came up with a few videos to make that a little easier. A little bit of coding's involved. So we wanted to make sure that that is something that you're able to do easily.
Awesome.
The other part that we were also doing is we're doing some column sorting, just basically data manipulation. That there's not a lot of information out on how you do that, and it's a little bit tricky. So we wanted to make sure that you guys had some good training materials on that. And then we have a new template that we just put up yesterday. So I wanted to get that out there, and I'm going to give a little demo of that now. So if we could switch over to that screen.
Do you need me to switch or stop presenting my screen?
Yeah, no, I think that Brandon's just going to switch it over for us.
Okay, cool.
You're good. Go ahead.
Great. I think we've got a little bit of lag on there. So Brandon, which screen are you showing right now?
You're good to go. Go for it.
Okay, great. So what we've got here is just a basic time tracker application. And so we can click into our different areas and see records. So each person has their own record. We've also got a little bit of conditional formatting here. So this one's saying that if they've had more hours added up than what they are, then we're going to turn it red. And these are actually summed fields from the data that's being collected in this related table. So that's kind of a really a neat feature of showing inline totaling. If we do change some number or something like that, we get the update and we can show those up at the top here too. So that's really neat. And then I also wanted to just kind of show you a little bit about doing the new feature, which is called invisibility mode. And so when we click the switch here, we actually get to see some more information that's expanding and collapsing here within the row. And so I'll just kind of bump over to the editor here and just show you how that collapse works. So we have a button here that's just tied to the, this one's using the value in the data for item.show notes. So it's just a true false, it's a boolean. And then this field here, notes, we're using we've bound to the same field in the database. So that's going to return a true or false. And if we put that into visible, then when the switch is on, it's true. And when it's off, it's false. And so that's just a very easy way to control that hide and show. And then we use this new invisibility type of absent. And what that does is that allows it to actually collapse the display so it doesn't take up space on the page. So that's really a neat feature there. All right. The totals that we're doing are actually coming from a few different things. We're having to run a few different scripts to add up the different values. And so those are also in that template. So you'll have to go through and review those. But they do end up adding into the client home piece. Something I did want to also show you here is we're doing some column sorting, and I can show you how that actually works in the app. So if you go up here and you type into this, if we have a B, we get everybody, but if we do BR, then we can sort to just Brandon. And that's working really easily out of what we do is we just do a data query on that certain column in the database. So data source query filters name contains, and that gives us that sorting of those columns. And you can apply that to multiple columns, and that will allow you to make your data shorter and shorter. So it applies to each column that you start typing into, you can do that. So it's really a great feature. And I think we're going to, we see a lot of people that have joined the Hangout, so that's really good news. We're hoping you're going to have some questions. I think Chris has some stuff to talk about from Google about some new updates. And then we're going
take
to
your time. I mean, we have the full hour, and so no worries.
Yep.
Cool. So so for this particular thing that you put together, like, so obviously you're showing the new feature that I can also even, I don't know, talk about it. Is there anything else that you want to like highlight, or any other, because like you mentioned you have some new videos, like you could even show some of your some, I don't know, some of the newer videos from your site if you wanted to.
Yeah, so this is AppMaker University, and we have, I don't know how many videos we have now. We've been working on a few. We have this new Quick Tips series that's just coming out, and we have another video that should be out by tomorrow on this one here. And this is actually the video that's talking about doing those column filters. So we go through step by step and show you, here's how you drag out the text box. This is what you set it in, and it's every part of learning what you're going to need to know in order to work with AppMaker. So most of these videos they get pretty in depth. So if you know, for instance, if you need to know how to transform your data and things like that, there's a lot of really easy ways to do that in AppMaker, and I'll just show you one really quickly. So if you notice, our dates here are set up as 2017-03. If we wanted to change those, we could do that very, very easily without actually changing the data. So when we're highlighted in that, we highlight that widget, we can get hold of it, and we go into more options on the value. We have an interesting no drop down there. Well, normally we would have a drop down on that. That's an interesting bug there, Chris.
Well, maybe pop that open again. Let me just double check.
Yep. It's a date field. So what we should see there is we should see the ability to add a transformer.
Right.
I'm not seeing that. So
well, we can make a note of it and play with it in a bit, but yeah.
Well, let's see if they have it. Maybe it has something to do with Hangouts being on their time. Well, this one will work here. So here we're in a number field, and this is what we should be seeing with date as well, and who knows why we're not today, but that's just one of those things. But we're able to apply these transformers. So if I wanted commas or decimals in my result there, then I can add that, and I could do things like, this isn't actually a dollar amount, but let's go ahead and add a dollar sign to the front and a couple of zeros to the back. And that would be in our total hours. And if I hit preview here, you'll be able to see how that renders. Now remember, we're not changing the data, we're just applying a transformer to it.
Which is purely the rendering, essentially. Yeah.
Yep, just what you see on the screen. So now you can see we've got a dollar amount and the decimal points there. So, and it works for the things that were already decimals as well.
Cool.
So kind of a neat way to do that. I can also show this conditional formatting, because that's kind of neat. So if I was to up these hours here to, let's see, 10, you see the conditional formatting goes away. And the way we're doing that is we've got a couple of different things going on. So one is here in the display. This is for the styles. So we have this function that's going to run, and I'll show you the code for that in just a second. But what it's working on is we're taking the hours in the plan, and we're saying if they're less than the total hours, then, well, that's going to give us a true or false, because that's a true or false statement. And we're sending that to this function here on the back end. And let me show you what that function looks like. So here in the function, that's this one here, we're just saying if it's true, what we're sending through here, if it's true, then we want to push into the styles array. We want to push in the status red. Otherwise, we're just going to set styles as nothing, and then we're going to return that. So it's going to return an array of classes that will go into that style element. And what those classes look like is,
and then you've defined your status red in your...
Yeah, and so it's defined here in your CSS. So that's how that changes. And so there's no triggers or anything. It's just all done by binding the data together and then setting a new status. So it's a neat way to do it. Very little code to make that happen.
Yep.
So yeah, a couple of neat little features.
Awesome. Anything else that you want to touch on before we switch gears?
Just that we're really happy to be working with everybody. We've had just an overwhelming amount of people that are coming in and getting training. We're training people all over the world right now. The videos have been, I think we've trained something like 70 days worth of work days worth of training now has been provided. 8-hour days worth of training has been provided now. So that's really good news. A lot of people are jumping in and learning AppMaker, and thank you if you've sent us some great comments. We really appreciate those, and we are trying to.
Do you get requests as well for content? Do you get requests on your for any particular topics?
Oh yeah, every day. We're receiving a lot of requests for different things, and we're trying to get those videos out as quickly as we can, so that you can have that kind of training right in your hands. We've got a couple of boot camp different pieces that are coming out that go from start to finish. We're working with several different companies where they're training their whole staff through some of our boot camps, and they're doing 16-hour classes, 2 days worth of training, and we're taking them through all the steps to build an app. And that allows them to walk away with not only a functioning app in their business, but also something that they're able to they have the knowledge to start building these apps. It's been great. We've had a lot of really neat experiences with people all over the world. It's been a lot of fun. Cool. So we're really just looking at bringing out more content. I think we must be around 21, 22 videos now. And our goal is to have 50 out by the end of the year. But I think we're probably going to hit that about midsummer at the rate we're going now, especially with the quick series where they're only 3 or 4 minutes long. They're just solving little issues that we've seen that for questions that have been asked in the forums and things like that. So that, we know that if the question gets asked 5 times and everybody wants to know the answer, then we probably should have some kind of training on that. So
okay,
making
cool.
sure those are getting up on AppMaker University.
I assume this is the answer, but so when you do have some new videos that also answer a question, I assume you're going back and just informing the discussion group of some of the new content that you have to address those?
Definitely, yeah. We just commented on the totaling just the other day.
Okay, good.
Interestingly, we have one video that shows you how to do the totaling in the row between 2 items and then overall. And then we just this newest template here has the aggregate of related records, which is another way of totaling things. And so we're actually going to have to put out another video on that one as well. So we're kind of excited about that. Very
cool. That's awesome. Yeah, no, this is great additional information that is now obviously coming within the term ecosystem. So so it's really great to see all this stuff starting to come about. Cool. Anything else, or how are we doing on chat questions? Do we see anything popping in yet? Don't see anything, at least on the Hangout yet. Cool.
Yeah, we got a few you can go over.
Oh, okay. So yeah, for some reason I don't see that. I'm switching over to the
live stream. We have a couple questions.
So the live stream, yeah. That's the one I don't have that I can see. But yeah, if you want to pop those or just read them back, we can probably just walk through those a little bit. And then we can do more Q&A at the end. But if there's anything pressing that's relevant right now, it's totally up to you.
Sure, some of them. Let's see. Nothing related to what we're talking about, but here's one. Can we have rich text email body while sending notification from app workflow?
So yeah, if I understand correctly, you just want to send like a rich text email from an AppMaker application. And so yeah, we actually do that. Our template applications do provide an example of that, where essentially you have your HTML content for your email message, and then you can use the mail app, that's the app script bean or the class that allows you to send an email. And there is an HTML option where you can actually define the HTML content for that email. And so typically what we use, or what I've seen used, is that you would have like a mechanism by which you can set up like a core set of tags that go inside your HTML content. And then when it comes time to send it, you have a little routine that can go in and replace any specific custom tagged items within that email and then that's the email that gets sent out in an HTML. Not sure if that's exactly what you're asking for, but in any case, you can look at our template applications, and there are examples of how to do that as well. Other than that, I guess we can do the Q&A also at the end too. I'm not sure if I'm sharing my screen, but I can share it, and we can go back onto the slides. If you see the slides right now, I'll wait for any cue to say we're not. So I'm pointing back to the AppMaker University slide, and then I have a few slides here that I can talk about on the Google side. So not sure if you're aware, but we do have our conference next week. It's in San Francisco, so Google Next. So I will talk a little bit about that. So we do have a session that introduces AppMaker. So we'll be essentially introducing AppMaker and kind of, at a high level, what are the business problems that AppMaker is solving, a little bit of update of like, how you can work with it. So I'm putting together some demos for that. And then outside of the session, we have like demo grounds that are going to be staffed by our engineers the entire stay while the demo grounds are open. So if you are lucky to join us over at Next, I believe the first day that the demo grounds will start is on Wednesday. And this actually starts quite early. 7:30 in the morning is when the demo grounds will open up. And at that point, we'll have our engineers. We have 4 stations, and they'll be all ready to go, being able to show you kind of the latest and greatest with AppMaker. I have some specific instructions for them to kind of walk through some of the latest template applications, which just kind of gives you like a crash course on all the bits and pieces of how to build a little bit more kind of like a turnkey solution with AppMaker. But don't let that scare you, because we have plenty of very preliminary samples, like how to insert data, things like that. And so that's all there too. But in any case, definitely if you're going to be able to join us at Next, feel free to introduce yourself, and we'd be happy to see you there. And of course, that's next week. Yeah, so other than that, I do have another slide. Let's see, some stuff that I want to talk about on the product side. So let me just switch over to AppMaker. So hopefully you can see my screen still. So first off, I wanted to make sure that folks are aware of our release notes. And also in general, if you guys haven't seen this, actually I should be able to demo it right in the product. If you go over to the left-hand menu here on the top, you'll see the support area here. Questions. So this should be updated now, but I can always click on it and double check. So the questions sends you to Stack Overflow. So it looks like it's not quite live. We also have a upcoming change that will also provide you a link into our AppMaker users area. So let's see. Yeah, that's our welcome tutorial. Yeah, I guess it's not quite live yet. But anyway, the thing that you can also see here is that we have a lot of links into the docs that provide the basic information of how to, if you're just brand new to AppMaker, you can start to go through here. And of course, we have these guides, which are very simple tutorials. So if you're totally new to AppMaker, definitely recommend stepping through these. And the thing I also wanted to mention is that for folks that are even already familiar with AppMaker, you may or may not know we do have these release notes. So we've been a little bit shy about publishing information about all of the releases, but we do have our doc team here that are now starting to jump on board and get more stuff out there, because let's face it, we've had like a number of releases, a lot of features are going out. It's been pretty active on the development side, but we're going to try to make sure the release notes are more helpful and continue to show updates. So that being said, the feature that James showed a little bit earlier is actually referenced right here. So this is as of just fairly recently, where we pushed out this feature where you can actually have things pop up and actually occupy space, or disappear and no longer it can collapse, basically. So a common usage, and I can even show you in the product, is that with the new table, let me just show you a real quick demo within the product as well. So with this new feature, I was playing with it a second ago. If I were to go through and have, say, a label here, let me just grab that label. So there's a way that I can have that label display or not. And notice how, like, well, I can even do it from scratch as well. The problem tends to come about like if you start dragging and dropping widgets into something where you're having like a flow layout where things are positioned with each other and they can force the things to shift over, and you may or may not want that depending. So like maybe in this case I want to have a spacer or something like that, so I could remove the text and this can occupy a certain amount of space. Now the thing that's kind of cool is that now you have an easier way to refer to this. And so in James' case, he showed like the demo where he clicked on this setting and then it was able to toggle how it's going to be viewed or what its behavior is. And this gets down to this feature here. It's called invisibility type. So that's an actual property that you can toggle or change. And then you can just say, I want it to either be absent or hidden altogether. And then it will show you whether it's going to do it. And so let me just unclick the setting there. And then now as I change the toggle there for the invisibility type, depending on what you want, you may actually want it to occupy space but still be hidden in that case, or you just want it to be absent. So hopefully I'm explaining it, but it comes in handy when you, especially like in this case, you want to have some spacing going along, but you don't necessarily want the content to display itself. While I'm at it, I can also show you some things that we found to be useful when working with the flow feature. So the flow layout, if you're somewhat familiar with it, it's comprised of, well, it's manifested in AppMaker via the panels, I would say most importantly. So like if you drag and drop a panel, we have three options really. We have fixed, horizontal, and vertical. And so also when you generate a form, you're basically just generating a vertical panel, which was going to be the container for your various widgets. And one thing I noticed fairly early is that if you start to build out forms, you'll notice that they're very linear in nature, and you may not necessarily want that. You might want to start to kind of mix and match some of your content such that it can be a little bit more horizontal in nature. Now, again, these are things that we'll continue to look at, and we'll probably have more versions of the form generators so that you can kind of pick and choose. But in the meantime, I kind of like to show you like a simple trick that you can do where you can just utilize a panel. So like in this case, maybe I want to insert a horizontal panel somewhere in my form, and then I can start to just drag and drop the fields inside of those horizontal panels in that case. And so this gives you a little bit more flexibility about how you can line up your forms such that you're not really stuck with the out-of-the-box form generation in that case. So, and then you can also toggle like how these things will occupy the space, like for example, fit to content or fill parent. We find that fill parent is actually a little bit more flexible in some of these cases. So just to kind of give you an FYI on how you can start to play with this, definitely recommend experimenting as well. So like, and you can even, as you're playing around with a panel, like this is just a plain old-fashioned fixed panel. And just to kind of give you more heads up on how it works, like say I drop a button and that button is just there as a normal fixed thing there. But that, even though I drag this widget out as a fixed panel, you'll see that there is this field right here where it's specified as fixed. But I can just very quickly just swap that out and switch it to a different look and feel. And then from that point, you can start to play around with how you want the widget inside of it to be rendering itself. So these are all the things that you can play around with essentially. And so for example, if I want to play around with let's see, I can tab through, maybe add some spacing on the left and the right and so forth. You can kind of get a feel for how some of these collection of flow layout features starts to work and help you out in that case. Now, a lot of times these things come in handy when you're dealing with tables. So, well, maybe I'll just create a new page here, and I'll toss in a table. Now, tables, we did a real quick demo last time, but I can kind of go through that a little bit more. So I'm going to grab this data model that I created before, which has like a large number of fields, just so you can kind of get a feel. And so there's my table. So the first off, just so you know, we've updated the table such that it now has the flow layout features built into them, in the sense that before everything was all fixed. So like if I were to have the task of moving a column around, I'd actually have to go through and kind of pixel push it and get the exact settings here. But now it's a lot easier to just swap or change locations of column, or if I want to delete a particular field, it's really no big deal because everything kind of shifts accordingly. Now, sometimes when you're maybe doing something that's a little bit more, I don't know, if I were to throw in a Google Map widget, for example, you can see how the behavior can affect the rendering of the particular, the rest of the row, for example. So in this case, you can still play around with the I can say make that fixed, and then let's even make it fixed on the vertical size. And then you can still have kind of the best of both worlds, where you can still customize the widgets themselves, and then even using for example, the padding feature, I can kind of customize further of how I want it to appear inside the table row. So hopefully this gives you a little bit of a feel for how you can take advantage of some of these newer features. For example, the ability to set up spacing, like the margins on the right and the left. And then, of course, there's the invisibility type feature that we added recently as well. Cool. So that's just a quick kind of a walkthrough of some of the newer features that we're providing within the visual editor. I don't think there was much else I was going to talk about, but other than that, let's just take a quick look again at our release notes, see if there's anything worth. So I talked about this, feature, the invisibility type. So yeah, a while back we did mention list fields are being deprecated in Drive tables. So if you haven't used it, don't worry about it. But this is basically kind of due to an internal compatibility issue that it became a little bit troublesome. So we backed off on this feature for now. So anyway, just the FYI in case you happen to do with that. Some other stuff, I don't know if I'll go into all of these things, but definitely feel free to read through the release notes and with our new doc person who's going to be engaged in making sure that our release notes are up to date as much as possible. So I think that's about it from my side. From a general product availability, yeah, we're still working towards a GA. Either late Q3, probably late Q3 is like what we're targeting, but that's stuff that's always being evaluated, and it always depends on how our experience goes with the early adopters. And also, just another shout out, in case you haven't seen, we do have the public AppMaker users group. So I'm just bringing it up really quickly. So this is a public AppMaker users group that we definitely encourage folks who have not joined. This is going to be our primary, again, it's old school, but it is going to be served as our primary engagement for, talking directly with the team. So for example, I posted this earlier today, and then we had a quick change on the Hangout. But anyway, hopefully you get the idea. The thing about this is that it's a public group, and you can self-join. So we're looking forward to having folks who haven't joined if you can please join us on this group, and you'll be most up to date with what things are going on with the team in that regard. So other than that, I think that's what I have for today. If there's any, I guess I can switch back to my slides here.
Hey, so I saw one thing in the chat here that if you want me to field for, it's about the descendants. If you want me to go through that, Chris, I could give that a shot.
Sure. I'll quit presenting, and then I can also have a quick look at the chat window to see some of those questions as well. But yeah, go for it. All right.
Well, I'll hit this one up while you're looking over there. So
okay,
you guys should be looking at my editor, my AppMaker editor view right now.
Yep.
Okay. So if we look at the page here, this one here, I'm selected. You can barely see the blue outline around the outside here, but right now I am on the main part of the page, and this logo here is sitting on top of that, and I just named it logo so it'd be easy for us to find. Now on top of the page we've also got this table sitting there, and then of course inside the table there's rows and there's other things, and we can even get all the way up to this element here. And the way you can see that is if you go over here to the outline, you can see that this is the top of the page right here, and then we go down, and we're actually all the way down inside. So we're inside list body, and then we're inside the table, and then we're inside the table panel. So we're several levels above the page level here when we have this item here selected. And so if we want to go and get the AppMaker logo, if we want to refer to that for some reason, then what we have to do is we can go in, and I'll just do it here. I'll just do it here in the binding so you can see it. I'm not actually going to do anything with this certain piece, but we're, well, actually, no, that's not going to be a good example for you guys. Let's go down here to the event so it's easier to see. So when I type widget, that's referring to the item that's currently selected, the widget that is currently highlighted, which is this, the hours here. And if I type a period, then I can do something like I can say root. And that's going to get me all the way down to the very base item, which is the page. And so we're identifying where we're going. So we're going all the way back up the tree to the page. And then if I type another period and descendants, then that's going to give me everything that's sitting on top of the current item that's selected. So that's the page. So I'm going to be able to see everything on the page. And you can see there, that's my logo right there that is selected. So we go down to the page and then back up to the logo by using this descendants field, because I know there's been a lot of question about that. I've seen this asked several times in the forums. So that's what we mean by descendants. So for example, if I was doing a widget and I did parent, then that's just what it's immediately sitting on. The same thing where if I also said descendants, then you're going to see a lot shorter list. This is just the things that are in that row in the table. So there's the button, and there's a few other things here, the different fields we have. And so that's how descendants works.
Hey, James, I saw a question just now on the chat that was when you refer to descendants, and then there are people out there who already are familiar with AppScript, but you might want to explain how descendants, and also more importantly, the AppMaker provides essentially a superset of AppScript. So AppMaker provides its own scripting API, both on the client and on the server, and that's what James is actually walking through. And then of course there's the general AppScript stuff, like, you know, if you want to send an email, you can use the mail app bean or the class, or if you want to, you know, create a connection to a doc, or even create a brand new doc or a calendar event, you can use the pure AppScript stuff. But I just saw that question. I don't know if you want to touch on that anymore, James, as well. Yeah, just for a second, because I think I might know where some of the other confusion's coming from. So, for instance, this has we were talking about our styles earlier. And you can write the code, the JavaScript, right here to do what you want to do. But it doesn't fit well. You can already see how I'm kind of off the screen, and it's hard to understand. So what we do is we just move that over to a client-side script. And that way we have a lot more room, a lot more screen real estate. We've got all the linting that's going on, and we can see what's going on with the actual script itself. Mm. But you'll notice, like right here, where I used descendants. Well, the reason why is these scripts that are on the client side are just like typing in the UI in any of these fields. So we're just moving it to a different place. It still reacts the same way because it's all running on the client. So even though it's here in the script, actually, these are actually the AppMaker pieces. One thing I find useful, and maybe you've done this as well, like inside of a client script, if you type anywhere within a function or anywhere, app dot, and then you'll see everything that you have available to you from AppMaker from a scripting standpoint. And so you'll see some app dot, and you can current page, for example, that just grabs whatever current page is, and then you could even go inside the current page or pages for that matter, and then name it specifically. And once you grab a page, you can keep on working your way down, and you'll see descendants as one of those fields down there as well. And so that's also, and again, this is not AppScript per se. This is the API that AppMaker provides for client-side interactions. And this is kind of the bread and butter of how you can do like some very intricate, UI manipulation. If you need to grab a connection to any particular widget, you can do just any little bit of this, navigating the hierarchy and such, changing the values. So for example, if you wanted to change like a value inside of a particular widget or what have you, you can just use this type of ways to access it, the various widgets. Now, again, this is not AppScript. This is purely the AppMaker client-side API. Now, if you want to show them also on the server-side script, if you click over, open the server-side script, and then if you type in a bit of server-side specific code. And so in this case, I typically show mail app, so with a capital M. Oh, yeah, you can also do the app as well. And this is the server-side perspective. So just go ahead and pop that open again, the app dot. And then you'll see, in this case, you can do like server-side data operations. So like maybe you want to query any particular model, and so you can even set up a new query. Like if you go to new query right there. Exactly, and even that little code example shows you how you can say, oh, maybe I want to call a routine that will fetch like a certain set of records, and I can set up a filter on that query. Like maybe, yeah, exactly, new query dot, and then you can see the filters, or yeah, you can play around with it, but there's a couple different ways that you can set it up. And so this is kind of like the other side of, like, instead of client side, this is all server side data manipulation. So this is kind of like the bread and butter of the server data access stuff. So you can set up calls to models. You can set up filtered calls to grab certain data. You can then update the data as needed, and then save it all back. And this is very important stuff if you're building any kind of application, being very comfortable with both the client side for UI manipulation and the server side for data manipulation. Yeah, hopefully that kind of explains a little bit of that. And then also, before we forget, can you type in capital M, AIL, and then capital A, PP, and then put a dot?
And you definitely said it there, Chris. There is one trick here. If you type in a lowercase m and hit your control spacebar, you won't see the autocomplete.
Okay, that's good feedback.
If you type a capital M, you will see it. And then we're able to do things like our mail app. One thing that's really great about AppMaker is you get all this documentation that really tells you a lot about how to use some of these different APIs, and you can even copy that out of there.
Select SendMail, actually. There's a lot more content for SendMail. And this also gets back to the question about embedding HTML in an email. So if you scroll down, this is actually scrollable on the right side. You can see, there you go. So you can see all the content there, and there's all the different options. And this is the actual AppScript documentation, but it's provided to you directly from the editor of AppMaker. Again, this is only server side, so you can see the different behavior. You couldn't type in mail app on a client-side script.
Right. And this example, interestingly, doesn't show us our HTML body. It would go here inside this object right here. You would have
somewhere. I think there's an example somewhere in that, but if not, you can always look at our templates.
Oh, there's one. Here's one right here.
Yeah. Okay. Exactly.
Yep. And so that's where you would put your rich text item that came from the page. You just insert it right into there. It renders as HTML and then sends those off.
Exactly. Very cool. Let me switch back. I had some notes here on some of the questions. Oh, big shout out to Charles Maxon, and thanks for joining us. I saw you answered one of the questions out there. So Charles has been helping with AppMaker with the Trust Tester program, so definitely appreciate your quick answer on some of the stuff. So also, I see a question from Derek. Basically, it's a request. More documentation on using AppMaker to connect to Docs and Calendar. That's great suggestion. So we can definitely make a note of that as well. We have a new person who's taking over our Docs, and he's going to be focusing on some key areas. And actually, this is a very opportune time because I'd like to also bring some of this feedback as well, so he can also make sure to cover that. There was one or two other things that I wanted to address. I think maybe Charles mentioned the thing about embedding an AppMaker on a public site, external site. Yeah, so that's correct. I mentioned that it's not available. So if you wanted to take an AppMaker application and publish it externally, whether it's in its site or whether it's on its own, that's not, at least the current architecture is such that all AppMaker applications will still be running entirely within your domain. We'll just have to see how the market continues to use it, and at some point, if people really want it to be exposed on the outside, that's always good feedback. But at least right now, as we're slated, it's purely within the domain. Let's see, I wanted to scroll through one or two other things that had popped up. Oh, calendar-driven workflow. So let's see, calendar-driven workflow is doable in the sense, in James, or if anyone else has any wanted to chime in. But basically, if I understand your calendar-driven workflow, where it's like you might want to have, well, I can think of some of the applications we've had internally where we have the overall workflow of a process, and that process can have as its ways to traverse the workflow via calendar dates. And so this is very doable. It's just a matter of how you write your logic to progress the workflow. I don't know if I can go into more detail without kind of getting into the weeds, I guess, but you can write, essentially, this is a high-level thing to say about workflow. Now, AppMaker can do workflow without a doubt. The thing I would say, though, is AppMaker does not have, say, like a WYSIWYG kind of visual design tool where you can establish the workflow purely visually. That's feedback that we've heard, and there's definitely precedent for those types of tools, and sure, that's something that we can also consider in the future. But at least for today, I wouldn't want to hold you back in the sense that you can actually build out functioning workflows purely within the scripting layer that you have with AppMaker. And in fact, we have a number of internal applications that have already been built and are live today using AppMaker with workflows. Some of them are calendar-based. Some of them are purely arbitrarily based off of like different status. So for example, a very common pattern we've seen inside of Google is that some people have like a spreadsheet. The spreadsheet has like a number of columns, and each column tracks like the progress of like what the state is, I guess, in that sense. And so what we've been managed to see, at least internally, is that these spreadsheets can be converted over into a fully functional workflow application without too much hassle. It's just a matter of taking like the columns and using that to drive how the progression within the workflow goes through. So case in point, maybe you had like a spreadsheet that had a URL for a document, and then you had one column that says, is the document approved? That's like a minimal example, but and then maybe there's a second line manager approval, and you can kind of see how that logic flows through in the spreadsheet. It's relatively straightforward to take those columns and then apply it into like a workflow system where it can go through and then just logically step through the different approval processes from a script, and then be able to mark a particular status, the final approval status in the application itself. And that's relatively straightforward because you could actually take the spreadsheet itself, generate out a model inside of AppMaker, and then have that drive the actual workflow as you step through it. Anyway, so hopefully I didn't confuse the issue, but yeah, that's definitely a very common pattern that we see. Anything else here from the?
Yeah, Chris, I was thinking if we want to switch back over to the editor here that I got open, I could show a little bit about how you can access Calendar, because that might be something people are also wondering.
Yeah, go for it. Go for it. So I assume that we can see your screen. And you can also do full screen as well, just to kind of zoom in a bit and
yeah, let's see. Oh, yeah, to zoom in on the code a little bit. Let me see if this makes it a little bit bigger for you.
Just pop open the menu to enter full screen mode. That way we don't see the additional stuff on the screen there.
Full screen mode.
In the browser, in the Chrome browser.
Oh, you're full screen. I don't see it. Well, let's just zoom in.
That's okay. That's all right. That's fine.
I'll make it a little bit bigger for everybody.
It's in the Chrome menu where it says enter command, shift command.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Oh, looks like we're running out of time.
Yeah. Well, I'll just give a really super quick. So you type your capital C for calendar and hit the control spacebar, and you'll see calendar app, and then you're able to start going through, and you can create an event, and then start doing add guests and do all those things that you would expect to do, and it's all basically driven through here. You can read the documentation as it pops up, but that's how you basically access Calendar or Google Calendar from AppMaker.
Awesome. Cool. I think we're going to have to finish up before we get, or at least I might get kicked out of my room. But I definitely want to thank James again for joining us and sharing what he had, and especially for Richard from joining us from gWorkplace. And as usual, just consult the AppMaker users group, and we'll continue to push out any further information. for future office hours. Sound good? All right. I think we can go ahead and sign up. Thanks so much, Richard and James. And then I think, Brandon, we're all good with the live stream as well. So I'll go ahead and sign off.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. See you next time.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.